April Fool's Day, although I know not too many folks here, as we join you on radio.com at 5 o'clock are in too much of a joking mood with what's going on in our country. I just actually was thinking of sports for a second. We'll have Bobby Valentine with us in about 15 minutes because somebody sent me a thing where I guess Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was. They have these silly, they have them in all. Everyone does them in all these different. They pick anything, and they make a ladder out of it, and they have a contest, and they're all rigged. I mean, the guys who do it all pick whoever they want to win in advance. As they do the ladder, they have it already preconceived. But not that it matters, but I guess they did. They picked Michael Jordan over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the greatest college basketball player of all time, which is just ridiculous. The people voting don't know what they're talking about. There is no way to frame Michael Jordan's basketball career in college and compare it to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's. Nobody's career in college even closely even comes within a country mile of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's career in college. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, was the best college basketball player of all time by such a wide margin. There's nothing to discuss. They changed the rules for him on his arrival in college. Case closed. They changed the rules. They knew he would be so dominant. Was he dominant? He won 88-2 out of 90 games. He's not the all-time leader at UCLA. There is a player with a better record. A player was not as anywhere near as good as him, but was in the right teams. Who actually was 89-1. That's Larry Farmer. But Kareem was 88-2. Walt, as an example, was 86-4. They always played 30 games in those days. UCLA always went 30-0 in the championship years. Kareem went 88-2. He was the three-time Player of the Year. He was the three-time MOP, which was the most, the player of the tournament. He was and the player of the Final Four. He was always the most important player. He was a three-time National Player of the Year, three-time Most Valuable Player of the NCAA tournament, three-time champion, and simply put, he was the most dominant, most important, and greatest player who ever stepped on a college basketball floor. To think anybody else is to just know nothing about the history of college basketball. It's not it. He's first, and it isn't even close. And second is a very good battle between Bill Walton and Bill Russell. And I would pick Bill Walton until Bill got a little preoccupied after January of his senior year, when he had not lost an organized game from 8th grade until halfway through his senior season. And remember, his team, the Walton gang, were unbelievable. Went 30-0 as sophomores, 30-0 as juniors, and then lost at Notre Dame and wound up losing at Oregon and Oregon State, and lost to NC State in the semifinal when NC State pulled the ball out on them once they finally got the lead, and beat them that year with David Thompson and Burleson and Monty Tao and those guys. He was 86-4 and won 2 national championships and was as dominant as any player ever was. So in my mind, the two greatest players of all time in college basketball were Jabbar and Bill Walton, 1-2. And I thought that at his peak, Walton was the only player who could play with Jabbar that I've ever seen in college. But that's how good Jabbar was. Jabbar was so dominant that it's not even worth discussing. And he was the most important player in every game that he ever played in, the focal point of every game he ever played in. And when he played with the patch over his eye and got beat by Elvin Hayes, he avenged that game with a 101-69 win over the same team when he was healthy in the semifinals that year, when they played him again that year, and beat the team that beat them in the Astrodome in a game that launched college basketball across the nation. And a great game by Elvin Hayes, who was a great player. But without any question, without even any discussion, Michael Jordan is the great. You can make a case as good a player as has ever been in the NBA. No question about it. There's a handful of players you put on that level with him in the NBA. I would put, obviously, Russell, Chamberlain, Jordan, LeBron, Oscar on that first five handful in the NBA. I would put those guys right there. And Jabbar right there, too. He'd be the sixth. That'd be the top six. But uh, in college, his junior team was a disappointment. He won the championship he averaged 13 points as a freshman on a team and got a championship shot. Um, and he was a brilliant player and was on the way of becoming a brilliant player. But nobody ever dominated college basketball like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Lou Alcindor. Not even close. So that's not even worth discussing. But it's good to discuss something else for a change and not talk about what's going on as we begin our month of April. And we know we're going to spend the whole month of April at home. And it doesn't look good for May right now, but let's take it one step at a time as the numbers just continue to just explode in New York and across the country. And really, New York is fueling a lot of it, as you know. Confirmed cases over 207,000 as we speak. It now goes up by 50,000 a day. The numbers in New York will soon be 100,000 on their own. Their own. 4,600 dead, and that number is going to just go up by thousands soon every day. It's now going up not a couple a day. It's now going up by 1,000 a day. And as the national number goes up, we will soon have half the people who have died from this. Right now, it's 44,000 in the world have died, 4,600 in this country. Before too long, half the people who will have died from this will be in this country. And that, how do we as Americans look ourselves in the mirror when that's the case? How is that possible? How is that even remotely possible? So, I mean, from that standpoint, I don't even see how that is remotely possible. I really don't. Uh, it's just mind-boggling. It really is, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I know a couple times in the last couple of days, I've spent a lot of time on it. I'm trying to do something different today. But it's hard to watch. It's hard to fathom. It's hard to justify what is going on in our city. And it's not getting any better. And it is really hard to justify and really understand how we're going to wind up with half the people who die from this be Americans. If I had told anybody that there would be a virus or there would be a pandemic and half the people in the globe who would die would come from our country, nobody would even think that was remotely possible. That is going to happen because it's not killing people around the world anymore on a wild basis. It's killing Americans on a crazy basis. Our numbers are exploding every single day. We now have 1/4 of the people who have it, who have the virus. We're now almost 1/4 of the population that has it. 800 and change worldwide. We have 207 of them, and there's 207,000 in our country. And now we are over 10%, about 12% of the world's dead, and that number is going to go up daily. And the metropolitan area of New York is dominating that. Wimbledon has canceled. Firearm sales soared in the month of March. There was a Bloomberg story on this today. Handgun sales went up year over year 91%. What does that tell you? What it tells you is that people are afraid that there is going to come a point where they're going to have to protect their own property. That we could have civil unrest. I don't believe that. I don't think that will happen. But that's what the fact that people believe we could have a breakdown of our civilization. to the point where we have unrest, civil unrest. That is a scary thought. And could that happen? Only if people are really starving. So we have to make sure people are getting paid. We have to give people who need money, get them the money. We pass the bill, get the money out. 3 weeks is too long. We have to do a better job than getting this money out in 3 weeks. There has to be a way for people to get their hands on the money before 3 weeks. Some of these people have been out of work already 3 weeks. Right? We've been in the house 3 weeks already, more. So people, some of them have been out of work for 3 weeks, maybe more. If it's going to take them another 3 weeks, some people don't have 6 weeks worth of cash or money or resources. Now, they don't pay the rent. I understand that. And that's going to have an impact enormously, too, when people aren't paying rents. You watch. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen in 40 or 50% of the cases. This month is going to be 75 by next month. They said the average person has less than $400 of disposable income at his disposal in emergency. We have got to do a better job of getting money to people, or we have to do a better job to get food to people, because when people get hungry or they can't get the main things they need to live and to sustain their family, they get desperate. And we've reached a point now where our leaders are trying to placate us with the idea that, well, we're going to lose 250,000. Just kind of wrap your arms around that and realize it could have been 2 million. The fact that that's acceptable in this country is outrageous. The fact that you can look anyone in the eye when there's 4,000 Americans dead and tell them, we're going to lose another 100, we're going to lose another 200 plus thousand Americans. Wrap your arms around that. Who can wrap their arms around that in this country? We should have everybody testing 24 hours a day. We should have everybody delivering goods and services and supplies 24 hours a day. And we should have every lab going 24 hours a day and testing anything that could possibly work before we would sit back and lose 200,000 people and it'd be okay. So we're supposed to be happy with the number comes in 250,000? We're supposed to be happy that we buried 250,000 people in a year or in a half a year? My God, what do we become? I'll try and keep it to sports today with Bobby. I'll see what's going on with him in Connecticut and some of the stuff. Hey, he's a restaurant owner. He's involved with a college. He's got stuff that's, we got to get to. But then we'll try and get it back to sports a little bit. But, crazy stuff. Back after this. Welcome in, Bobby Valentine. Bobby, welcome. How are you?
Mike, I'm basically the same as everyone else. I'm cooped up, and I'm doing fine under the circumstances. Thank you.
I saw you singing. Someone on television showed a video of you singing "Meet the Mets." I think it was on the 11 o'clock news on the other night.
Oh, gosh. They don't have anything to do with the news anymore, do they, Mike?
No, well, listen. They need sports videos right now, Bob. They need sports news. It's hard. There's not much going on, but it has been. How are things? You're involved in a lot of different things. You're involved with the college. You're involved. You got a restaurant. How are things going as far as your business ventures?
Well, status quo. The restaurants are closed. The sports academy is closed. The university, with our 90-something coaches and 800-plus athletes at Sacred Heart University, we're doing a great job of keeping everyone together. It's very difficult. Coaches are, dealing with the same thing the student-athletes dealing with, the same thing you and I are dealing with, that idea of uncertainty and just how to move forward in these uncertain times.
Bobby, will they give the kids on that level another year as eligibility? Is that the plan?
Yeah, Mike, the NC2A just 2 days ago came out with a format that will allow seniors who were in their final year of competition in the spring sports, they're allowing them to come back The rosters will be expanded. They don't have to get the same scholarship. They could get a little less if that still gets them back in the saddle. And the last thing anyone wants to do is take that senior year away from someone who might not ever play the sport again. Might just leave that idea of field hockey or baseball or whatever sport we're dealing with. And have it only as a memory. So we want it to be a good memory.
Bobby, you have a successful restaurant, very successful restaurant. And I don't mean this to pry, but I mean, how long can you handle helping out I don't know how many employees you have, but I mean, you got a bunch of them, I'm sure. And I know a bunch of other guys who have restaurants and bars, and these businesses have been crushed. I mean, absolutely crushed. And you worry about the people who work there and make tips and have to live like that. I mean, it's a lot of people you probably have to worry about right now. I know a lot of guys who are in the same boat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what we're doing. And at the Sports Academy, a lot of the guys and gals who are there make their living by giving lessons.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, the kids train there, so they
they're hands-on, and when you close the doors, there's nowhere to give that lesson. It's a strenuous situation. I'm lucky enough to have some wherewithal, and the businesses were successful enough to, bridge some of these situations for the employees.
Good.
But it's tenuous. It's very, very difficult.
There it is. Let me ask you this from a baseball standpoint. Bobby, as you know, folks, has obviously had a long, successful career as a manager and before that as a player. What would you, if you were getting ready to manage this year and this happens, what would be the thing that you would worry most about your team?
Wow. Well, the idea of establishing trust, which it's paramount. If you're going to be in any winning situation, you have to have trust, and then you have to have teamwork. And in this situation, with everyone being separated, it's really hard to start building that team philosophy. And when you aren't seeing guys on a daily basis and you're separating from them, it's very hard to build the trust. And those are things that in a baseball season, as most seasons go, are compounded as the season goes on. Now you're talking about a possible shortened season. You're talking about people from all over the place coming together and hope that they're in shape by the time they're playing. I just think to communicate with the people, to establish the trust, keep the trust, I think is paramount. To try to get the guys talking to each other a little, seeing each other, sharing some commonality, I think is important, but it's difficult times.
Would you have even though you wouldn't be with them, would you have your pitches thrown a little bit, or you would tell them to shut it down?
No, all skilled positions would be given a protocol.
Okay.
Even
pitchers?
Yeah,
okay.
I think every pitcher has a protocol right now.
Okay.
It's not necessarily off the mound,
right?
But there's some long tossing, there's some weight work, there's some cardio work that's paramount to if you're going to hit the ground running, and it seems like that's what they have to do.
And how many days do you think they need, Bobby? For each week they've been out? How many days do you think you need to get a team back ready?
Well, again, the pitchers are the big point, and
right.
I think what they'll do is extend the rosters even more. I used to say that the 40-man roster should be at the start of the season so that you could use more players.
It makes plenty of sense.
They could perform. So maybe they're going to expand rosters at the beginning so that people pitch less and kind of get in shape as the season progresses. But before you know it, this season's going to be gone, and to have a legitimate champion is getting tougher by the day.
Yeah, I could see them. We're talking about Bobby Valentine. I could see them going through a split season. Maybe like the two halves. Something like that. Since they might only have, say, even if they play doubleheaders on Sundays, which would be good for the fans. Maybe they play 120 games, something like that. I mean, if you're the NBA or NHL, you're probably just going to come back with your playoffs whenever it happens, if that can even be done. So I know football come out of this ahead of everybody else because of the way the season's broke. But I could figure baseball maybe could squeeze, let's say if it's some reasonable amount of time, July, June 15th, whatever it could be, maybe you could get 100 games in, 120 games in.
Yeah, man, 120 would be okay. Once you start getting less than 100 and playing a half a season, if you will, then there's going to be some questions of the legitimacy of the season. But, I'd like to see a game a week. I don't care. I'm as a baseball fan, I'd just like to see the game continue somehow.
So, what you would like to see them even put a game out there now, you mean?
No, I don't think they can do it now.
Oh, okay.
No, I think that would be irresponsible. But I'd like to see it sooner rather than later. Once, one of those other hats I wore was the director of public health and safety in Stanford here, and I'm communicating with those people often. And, it's an ugly situation. So there's no reason to do anything before we should or could, but we have to be prepared once the light turns green to go.
Do you find, in wearing that hat, do you find that people are adhering to the idea of staying home and staying in their neighborhoods? Do you sense that do you see that that's working?
Yeah, I think it's finally getting to the masses that it's necessary. Again, the uncertainty of how long is what's driving everyone crazy, and what will probably have this train go off the track if we don't figure out some kind of end game here. And it's just a very, very difficult situation.
Unlike anything we've ever seen before. I mean, to ever see our country shut down like this, and to see sport. I mean, this is something that none of us have ever even approached. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. It really is. I mean, Wimbledon canceled today as an example, and I mean, just amazing. I mean, we're living in very, very strange times. We're talking with Bobby Valentine. Baseball will come back, folks, and it'll be important when it does, because it will. Baseball gives everybody a sense of normalcy. There's no question about it. Looking back, Bobby, over it's funny. Now everybody's replaying all these games and going over all these classic times they were playing. Games from 2000 and different things. It's a funny thing. When I go back and look over my career, one of the things I've always said is the Subway Series did not have the grip that I thought it would on everybody. It really didn't. It was an interesting series. It was an interesting dynamic, but I think people in this town, from a baseball standpoint, were almost nervous. It was weird. It was such an odd dynamic that I was always hoping we get another one, because that one was very strange. The Mets handled it in one way. The Yankees were very uptight, exceedingly uptight as a team. I never saw them so uptight. And it was
How about when George changed the furniture?
Right. I mean, they were just so afraid the idea that they would lose to you guys. And your team, which was highly underrated, came within inches of having that be a very different series. I mean, from the O'Neill walk to Timo Perez, you guys actually played them really well, to the, Louis Soho 80-20, 80 bouncer, the Peyton homer off Mariano Rivera. You guys actually played them very, very well in that series. It was very misleading.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It was an exciting time for fans. I think in our area, I don't think it captivated the nation.
It didn't. No.
I don't think it did.
Yeah.
But the bus drivers and truck drivers, the cab drivers, and the school teachers in the metropolitan community were they were fixed to their TVs, and it was a great week. It ended too quickly.
You got a lot out of that
obviously,
team
for me.
that year, Bobby. When you go back and look at that team, and look now, you go out and look at the outfield as an example. You got a lot out of that team that year.
Well, yeah, it was a good group of guys. Once again, I think we built trust, and then we had teamwork. And when you have those things, you have a chance at doing wonderful things. And we had the National League championship and couldn't close the deal.
Listen, it was a great year. It was a lot of fun. It really was.
Thanks.
I mean, it was a very different time. When you go back and think of this, now I remember 9/11, which was very different than this because it was that sudden shock, and then we all had something to do. I remember you, especially you guys, and you out there every day loading up all those trucks outside Shea Stadium, which was like a place where everything got loaded and everything got moved from. It was almost like a supply area, where there were trucks coming and going and everything. And you were very busy during that time. You guys as a team, and you especially, were very busy during that time. I'm sure that these couple of weeks made you think about that, even though I'm sure it feels very different. It probably did harken back to those days, huh?
Oh yeah, I thought that the uncertainty of the moment was similar, and I thought that the trust was also similar, and the difference was it was kind of a call to action.
Yes.
Where this is a call to inaction.
Exactly. And there's no certainty here. There's no plan here. That's the bottom line. And I think that's where, not to pick on anybody, but that's where we need a plan. We need to know what we're doing, but I just don't think they have any plan yet because I don't think they know how to get their arms wrapped around the virus. I just don't think they know how to attack it yet. I think they're still trying to figure that out is what I think was going on. And
we're on Mars, and we don't know how to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially in our area, look at the numbers in the metropolitan area. They're unbelievable.
Yep. We've had our cases out here in Connecticut,
I mean,
Westchester County, and
Queens.
it's going to spread across the country. We know that.
Absolutely. What's the hard? I mean, of all, which is the hardest part for you? Is it you got a lot of hats. You got the college. You got all the different things you do. Is the restaurant the hardest part to deal with?
No, the restaurant is. I'm in with Sport Tech, which it's an international company,
right.
and they have their act together.
Gotcha.
My academy is a hands-on situation, but the director of athletics at a mid-major university where we're talking about 90 coaches and 800 student athletes, every day the phone's ringing or the emails are consistently coming in, and I'm trying to be a little beacon of hope, even though I don't have the answers. And the university is doing a great job of keeping everyone paid and keeping up the spirit.
Very
My
good.
staff has been spectacular. I have I have Megan Miller, who's my deputy, who communicates with the NC2A and the NEC and makes sure that all the information is filtered through.
What are you hearing from your athletes
every day?
What are you hearing
every day, Mike?
What are you hearing
every day?
What are you hearing from your athletes?
Well, we're hearing concern. We're hearing about not only that they're not in season playing. Many of them are worried about the condition that they're going to be in, or the condition that they're going to lose. Our strength and conditioning program is the pillar of our success, and now we're doing it remotely, and the student athletes getting things on the internet, and it's just not the same as the hands-on approach that we've had them become accustomed to.
Interesting, and most of them are home with their families, right? All of them are, right? They're all home, right?
99% are home with their families, and taking classes remotely. We got set up with that very quickly, and we're kind of the leader to pack there, and so they're getting their education. Just the athletic side is. It takes some sweating, It takes some working, and it's hard to do that in your bedroom, in your living room.
Is the school being utilized in any way right now, or is it shut down?
No, we are shut down. There's only essential employees are there, and we're trying to turn off the lights and save a couple dollars because this is a major hit. That $1,800,000,000 that usually comes from that basketball tournament isn't there this year,
Yep.
and that hits everyone right in the purse strings. So we're trying to figure out how to keep it all together.
That is a very good point. People don't realize that tournament funds everything for college athletics. Everything.
Except for the big boys who have football. The big boys who have the football in their own conference, they get that money. But everyone else around the country is reliant on the tournament.
No, absolutely. It's amazing. You don't realize when everything stops, how one area impacts the next and impacts the next, and how one event it can affect so many different things. To not have a tournament. And that's one event that there's just no way, there's nothing they could do. I mean, that one had to go. Wimbledon's already said they're not coming back this year, too. So just to show you that they said, no, we're not even considering it. They're not even considering, some of the other events are still thinking about going in the fall. Wimbledon said, we'll see you next year. I mean, they already said, we'll see you next year. We don't intend on playing another time. So, I mean, some of these events, like the NCAA tournament, there was just no way. I mean, once the dates are gone, it's over. And it's going to be interesting to see what the NBA does. I mean, the NBA is talking about maybe playing without fans and playing at two sites with all the teams coming to two sites and basically building two television studios and playing the games.
Yeah, it's an amazing situation. I thought baseball was going to be able to start the season in Florida, and start playing some games down there without fans that counted in good weather. But now they're not going to have to worry about the weather. They're going to have to just worry about the season.
And what's realistic for someone who knows this as well as you do? What's realistic when the bell rings? How many weeks do the teams need to get themselves in enough shape where you're not worried about your pitches and you're not worried about your players? How many weeks will you need to get ready to start the season?
With an expanded roster, I think you need 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
I think these world-class athletes, just need to see it, need to figure out their timing as hitters. They have to make sure their legs are ready to go first to third and first to home. And then the pitchers just are going to need the extra time, and that's why I'm sure they're going to have more pitchers on the roster at the beginning than they normally do, just to get through those games.
Makes plenty of sense. Listen, thanks for a couple of minutes. Be well. We'll talk to you when things are. Thank you.
We're in that vulnerable stage.
Yes,
so
that's very
careful.
True. That's for you too,
okay,
Bobby.
Bro.
Thanks. Be safe. Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
All right, Bobby Valentine.
Mike's on. He's ready to go. On the Fan. New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM. WFAN.
All right, a little after 6 o'clock on this April 1st, April Fool's Day. Not a day for a lot of frivolity, though, as we continue along with this craziness. Now we begin a new month of it. With the news that Wimbledon has canceled for the first time since World War II. And this has got a feel that, really, our economy has been shut down during that time, our economy was actually ratcheted up because we were having people go to work, women go to work, factories going 24 hours a day to, contribute to the war effort. So actually that was a time when it was going around the clock. Now it's a different era. It's a sit and wait. And we watched today as Wimbledon canceled their championship due to the virus, as the virus continues to run unchecked. President having his press conference now. I didn't get a chance because I was talking to Bobby Valentine on radio.com. I did not get a chance to hear his press conference now. I know it has something to do with some international drug thing. Hard to know why that's a part of the virus talk. But, hey, Who knows? The bottom line is they have not in any way gotten their arms around this in any way, and nothing's going to change for us folks day to day until we get either a answer from a standpoint of them coming up with some existing drug that has been used on humans for some other purpose, or a combination of drugs that they put together that work. That would be obviously the silver bullet if that ever happened. Forget getting something new. Something new will take upwards of a year. I mean, there are companies who are going to try and do that. There is, there's a lot of incentive for that to be the one that does it, and also there's plenty of economic incentive for a new drug because you own it. But these old drugs don't bring back a lot of money, but that's not the case right now. It's to find something that will work, and hopefully that is the case. If that would happen, the numbers continue to just explode nationally, with most of them being fueled by our metropolitan area. We have over 4,000 dead, almost half of them from the metropolitan area of New York. We are losing people by the hundreds per day in the metropolitan area. It is hard to fathom. The numbers continue to go up and just skyrocket. We'll soon be over 100,000 cases in the metropolitan area. New York is 1 by a wide margin. New Jersey is 2 by a significant margin. And then take it from there. Numbers exploding, as we said. We begin now the month April. You already have states like Virginia, which have already said that they will expect their people to be home till to June 10th. June 10th. Throwing that date around. Nationally it's April 30th. Florida joined in today. We should have a national number. Now, there are a lot of states still, some of which have very little virus, but other states also which have not had the stay-at-home decree or any restrictions in their state so far. I think there's still 20 states or 19 states that are in that way. We need something nationally. We need to restrict travel nationally, and then we need to at least massively test the hotspots before we're going to get our arms around this and slow the growth and be able to get any real significant change. Otherwise, we just sit and wait and watch the news get worse by the day. You watch it at night, you get up in the morning, you look at the number, it's worse. Now the reality, the economic realities are going to start to hit everybody. You hear the numbers and you're going to see this and hear this. The gun sales, according to Bloomberg, handgun sales in America went up by 91% month over month. That's not something you want to see. Making people think that they need to that there's going to come a time where there's going to be civil unrest. Hopefully we never reach anything like that, but we have to make sure the money that has already been voted for, that has already been allotted, that money has got to get out and get to the people as quickly. They said today 3 weeks. 3 weeks is too long. You have people then who will not have had money sometimes 5 or 6 weeks. That's too long. Now, I don't expect people to have to. I expect they get an understanding ear from whoever they pay their rent to or pay their mortgage to. I expect they're going to get an understanding ear there. They have to. So we expect that. But that doesn't mean they have food to eat. They say the average family has less than $400 in an emergency fund or at their disposal. Yes, they can use credit cards for that, although that's not something you want to do, but in an emergency, you're going to do that. You're going to do whatever you have to do. Obviously, the unemployment numbers are going to be off the charts. And as we watch the backdrop where hospitals are overflowing and the numbers of the people just losing their lives just continues to explode. So, again, It's the same story now, day after day. You watch the Cuomo press conference, and it just gets more depressing by the day. I haven't seen the presidents today, but again, there doesn't seem anything new there that's going to get anybody any hope today. I don't think anybody in America cares right now about what's going on with some international drug cartel. I'm sorry. I really don't think they are. Unless they were invading our country, I don't know what else would they would care about. We have a drug problem in this country, but right now we have a more acute problem. We have people dying by the thousands. We have people losing their lives now by the thousands. We have virus exploding to where there's already. You didn't realize there was not. The first case was about 5 weeks ago that we heard a recognized case of any real note. Maybe there were 10 or 15. Now there's 207,000 cases at the moment in our country. 207,000. 800 and some odd thousand in the world. So we're a quarter of the world's cases. We're 12% of the world's dead. Our number is growing astronomically. We're going to have 100,000 cases in New York before too long. And we just have to do more. That's all there is to it. We just have to do more. There has to be a call to arms here to do more. Because the virus is winning. And it's winning by the day. By the day. We got a late start on it, and it is kicking our rear end. And we got to stage a comeback. This thing is just getting out of hand. Back after this. 10-episode documentary coming up about his last year with the Bulls. And that'll be interesting because the Bulls were a great team. They were like rock stars. I saw them play all the time. I saw them in person so many times I can't even. Thankfully, I got to see them play so often. Doug and I went to the playoffs in Chicago almost every year. Never missed a game when they came here. Never missed a playoff game when they played here. Went to the finals most of those years. So we saw that team all the time. And it was a great team. And I liked the Rodman edition better. And they were better defensively. But that'll be very interesting. And ESPN's always got an eye towards promoting and merchandising, which is why it's utter nonsense, complete utter nonsense, that they would pick him to be the number one college basketball player of all time. That is such an outrageously wrong selection. Listen, you can make the case that Michael's the greatest basketball player of all time. We can have a debate about it. We can bring in a couple other guys generationally into the debate. The success of Bill Russell, the sheer dominance of Will Chamberlain. But we all know how great Michael was. But Michael was not the greatest collegian of all time, not even close. He wasn't the second greatest collegian of all time. He won one championship. His junior year team was a bitter, disappointing team in the tournament. Lost to an Indiana team that should never beat them. While Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, was so far and away the greatest college basketball player of all time. First of all, his junior team is the greatest team of all time. Secondly, he went 88-2 in 90 games at UCLA. He won 3 national championships. He won 3 National Player of the Year awards. He won 3 Most Valuable Player awards in the NCAA tournament. He won every award you could ever win. He was the most dominant figure in the history of college basketball. They changed the rules for him. And he was the center, the focal point and the center of every game, and just the only thing anybody talked about in every game that he ever played in. He was by far, hands down, by a mile, the greatest college basketball player of all time. So the fact they picked Jordan is foolhardy. It's not even close. There's nothing even to discuss there. There's not any argument you could make that would even put him. He's not even close to being as good as Bill Walton was, no less as he is good as Jabbar was. So that doesn't even connect. And he averaged 13 points as a rookie. His first year as a freshman, he averaged 13 points. He made a game-winning shot, but he averaged 13 points that year. James Worthy and Sam Perkins were the stars of the team. James Worthy was an enormous star that year. Michael had immense talent. I saw him play in person every year he ever played in college. I was at the game. As a matter of fact, Brent Musburger and I were basically 4 feet under that basket where the ball came through that he won the championship with. We were right under the basket getting ready to go on the air when that ball came through. We were standing right there. I still remember to this day exactly where we were standing because we were getting ready to go on the set in New Orleans that night. That's the first year I did the NCAA tournament for CBS. I saw Jordan play in person every year he played in college. He was a great talent, but he was not the greatest college basketball player of all time. It's not even close. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was. Not even remotely an argument. I mean, there were a lot of guys better than Jordan in college. That doesn't mean that they were as good as Jordan as an all-time player, and no one was. And in the pros, nothing to discuss. But in college, come on now, that's just so unfair to Jabbar. It's not even worth discussing. I mean, that's mindless. So anybody who's upset about that, not that it matters, who cares about those things? But the bottom line is that isn't even. I don't know. They didn't even pick the right 2 guys to be the last 2 guys standing. Jabbar went 88-2. Walt went 86-4. Didn't lose a game until his senior year. Lost to Notre Dame, lost to Oregon and Oregon State in the same weekend, the lost weekend, and lost to NC State in the semifinals. Before that, he was 30-0 as a sophomore, 30-0 as a junior, won both championships. And yes, in the championship game, went 21-22 from the floor, as you know, in one of the great performances of all time. And he was, I think, the second greatest college basketball player of all time. And I think just that year got away from them. They got a little experimental, I think, in that senior year. They got a little bored. Remember Bill Walton, from 8th grade till halfway through his senior year of college, did not lose an organized basketball game. Not one. So think about that. 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then in college, until he was a senior, they had not lost one game. That's pretty outrageous when you think about it. And he was part of the UCLA team that won 88 in a row, a big part of it, which they got beat that day at UCLA, as you remember. Duck Clay and all those guys got beat. Walton had a bad back, and then they lost to Lonnie Shelton, and Oregon State in the same weekend. They called it the lost weekend, and then they lost to NC State when NC State got the lead and pulled the ball out. Wooden was a proponent of the shot clock, so when he had the lead on numerous occasions against NC State, he never pulled the ball out. As soon as NC State got a 1-point lead, they pulled the ball out and held the ball. Stopped playing. UCLA never stopped playing. UCLA had a 7-point lead late in the game and didn't stop playing and blew the lead. UCLA did not believe in that. Wooden did not believe in that. He did not believe in holding the ball. So he would not. He was a proponent at the time of the shot clock. And those were obviously way pre-shot clock games. The last game ever played without the shot clock was Villanova-Georgetown in Lexington, Kentucky, which in that game, Villanova held the ball more than 45 seconds, I think 11 times. So they used the clock very, very much. And they also were 9 for 10 from the floor in the second half of that game. So they shot the ball very well. So that made but the point was, college basketball's greatest player ever, hands down, not even worth discussing, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Lou Alcindor. They changed the rules for him. Think about that. The highest scoring game he ever had in his career was the first game he ever played, if you didn't know that. Just to make the point, I could do this, but I'll do it once and get it over with, and then I'll never do it again. And he never did. The first game he ever played was the highest scoring game he ever had. Just to show the point that he could have scored, if he wanted to score 50, he could have scored 50 every game. He didn't want to do that. and his junior team, which was Warren, Lucius Allen and Mike Warren, Hines, Shackelford, and Jabbar, is regarded as the greatest team of all time. Let me squeeze a couple calls in real quick. Sam in New London, what's up, Sam?
Hey, Mike, I just wanted to say, man, first and foremost, man, you're awesome. You're the best.
Well, thank you, Sam. What's happening?
I just wanted to say you couldn't be more right about Lou Alcindor being by far the best collegiate basketball player ever.
Listen, that one is not, and thanks for the call, that one is not even open to debate. There is nobody even close. Will Chamberlain only played 1 year in college. Bill Walton had a very weird senior year. He would have been the other candidate. There were some great players in college, great players. We can go back and talk about history of them. There were many, which I can give you, from Jerry Lucas, who was an all-time great. Tom Gola was an all-time great. If you want scoring, you got Pistol Pete Maravich. Didn't win anything, but the point. But if individual, but if you want the best player, not even close, was Kareem. Rob and Lake Success. What's up, Rob?
Michael, you're 1,000% correct. Archbishop Malloy. I mean, that was by far the. And I remember
he went to Powell Memorial. He didn't go to Archbishop.
Right. I remember the game. It was a weekend game when Walton against Notre Dame. If I remember, it was like a national game in a weekend.
Saturday afternoon game.
Right. It was a Saturday afternoon, and again, they broke the streak. Mike, number one, I haven't talked to you in a long time, and I'm so happy to get through. And you're just amazing today, and you bring me to tears. I had the virus, okay? I'm one of the earlier cases. Michael, this thing's been in the country since December. And you know what? It's really, really much worse. As a healthcare professional, the governor sent me an email. They need volunteers. I have friends that are nurses working out in Stony Brook. It's just horrible. It's so much worse than what people have any idea what's going on.
You saw the plane. And thanks for the call, Rob. You saw the plane last night where the people were coming up on a flight of healthcare people to volunteer from Atlanta. I mean, they had a whole plane of them. They took a picture of them on the news coming up. I mean, and anyone who works in that knows that they need volunteers right now. They need equipment. Hey, they even told doctors not to be complaining anymore about a lack of equipment. The hospital executives told the doctors to please stop complaining. The doctors aren't complaining because they want to complain. They're complaining because they want help. John and Nutley, what's up, John?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking the call.
Yeah, what's happening?
Real quick. First of all, with this virus, don't you think it's time to literally shut the country down,
yes.
where no travel, no nothing,
yes,
and subways and all that stuff?
Yeah, except for essentials, I think we have to completely stop everybody from moving. No flights, no trains. The only thing that moves on the interstate highways is food. And we have to shut it down, and we have to, and thanks for the call, John, we have to test. In the hot areas, I understand we can't test 350 million people. We have to go to the hot spots, use the National Guard, use FEMA, use every person in the military who you can spare, and test around the clock in the hot areas to get people separated in those areas and get the people who need to be quarantined in those areas, and then we'll branch out to the states that have less of it, and then maybe within 30 days we can get the country open if we do that. It just seems to me we don't have a sense of urgency that is missing here, that we just wait for it to get worse, and it's getting worse by the day. Cody in Jersey City. What's up, Cody?
Mike, thanks for taking the call, Mike. First time caller, long time listener.
Yes.
You're right about coronavirus. We're getting clobbered all over the place, and it's time maybe to shut down the country. I just wanted to just to tell you one thing. I follow you on Twitter, and you make an utter buffoon of yourself every day on Twitter. Happy April Fools.
All right, so there's a guy who's got a good. Then why follow me? If you don't like what I say, why would you follow me?
You make a buffoon.
You know what? Listen. Not everyone's going to agree, and I understand. I understand that I took a shot at Trump, so I'm going to hear from the Trump supporters right now. I did it. I voted for him. I'm still a supporter, but you know what? He's not done a good job here, and I'm tired of seeing people die. I'm tired of seeing people die. I really am. I want to see it stop. I want to wake up one morning and not see people dying every day, okay? And this isn't a political thing. It's not meant to be political. And I understand people are going to get angry if, everyone's got a side here. And as soon as you say anything that's critical, well, then you're an idiot, you're this, you're that. Hey, what I'm saying is what I see. I'm being fair. This is a man I voted for. This is a man I have supported. In this area, he has dropped the ball. Pick it up and let's get better. Let's save lives here. I'm tired of waking up every morning and seeing another couple of 100 New Yorkers dead. You should be too. And if you're not, I don't know what you're looking at, Cody. Don't worry about re-election right now, okay? Worry about us getting through this. That's what you should be worried about. That's what's important here. Politics should not even register right now. It should be about us being able to get back to our lives and being able to wake up in this city without people having died all night. We're losing people by the hundreds every day. It's not okay in this country. It can't be. I don't care what your politics are. It can't be acceptable. And when you're so blind that it's my guy's right no matter what, that's where politics gets stupid. When it's my guy is right no matter what. No. Anyone can make a wrong decision, and when they do, you want them to turn it around. And this one needs to get turned around so that we can move on and not have everybody dying in our city. That's what's important. Casamigos Tequila sponsors the program as always. Brought to you by those who drink it. We'll see you tomorrow.